Hello and welcome to Out of Frame Behind the Scenes podcast. I'm joined today by Jen Mafasanti, and Sean Malone is still not able to join us, but he'll be back next week. And it's me, Paul Nelson, still Paul Nelson. But this week we wanted to talk about something that's it's a little bit older, but I think once we kind of give you the idea of where we want to go with the next few episodes, you'll get it. So today we're going to talk about Zack Snyder's 2013 film, Man of Steel. So that there's a lot of interesting topics that, on the face of it, you would think, oh, that's just a superhero movie. But there are some things that we're going to get into that if you scratch just the top of the surface, gets really kind of ugly and really bad ideas that we've pushed back against over the last century. So that'll be an interesting conversation. But first, Jen, how are you doing?
I am doing well. It is a beautiful day in the Salt Lake Valley. We had some snowstorms, like literally everybody earlier, but it's cleared up and it's a gorgeous day. So
that's good.
How are things over there?
Atlanta is not hot. It is cold and rainy and kind of miserable. But, all in all, at this point we're recording and Texas is still having a lot of issues. So I think we feel pretty lucky right now of how everything's going. So not as bad as it could be. So let's just hop right into Man of Steel. Man of Steel, like we said, we're talking about the 2013. This is a reboot of the Superman franchise. This was directed by Zack Snyder and also co-written by Christopher Nolan. So I should love this movie. We'll see. But this film, it starts on Krypton, and it shows the end days of that planet and that society, and gives the backstory to the Superman that we know and love. Clark Kent, and so that starts the plot in motion. So we start with seeing Clark Kent with his Kansas family and learning how to channel his superpowers and not use them against the lowly humans. And he is later faced by General Zod, who is bent on recreating Krypton and returning it to its former glory, which would then cause a genocide of the human race. So with that, that's a fun.
That's about it.
That's a fun topic, but there's some interesting things about the Krypton society that kind of gets glossed over when people talk about this movie, because you kind of skip to it's a return of Superman because the Bryan Singer movies in the mid 2000s, kind of Truth, Justice, and some other stuff. And this definitely returns to Truth, Justice, and the American Way. So we might touch on that later, but there's some interesting things we want to start off with first with Krypton society, and that's eugenics.
Yeah. Like bad eugenics. I mean, not that eugenics is ever good. Let's be honest here. But this is pretty extreme. So in the opening scenes, Jor-El, Superman's biological father, kind of drops the bombshell that he and his wife Laura have had the first natural birth of a baby on Krypton in centuries, and that there exists something called the Codex, which is the genetic pattern of every Kryptonian yet to be born. So that's super extreme.
Yeah, it's
that's not a little bit of eugenics. That's not oh, we should totally hook those two people up because they'd make good babies. It's no, we need to totally control what genes get used at all. So there's that. And apparently every single genetically engineered baby on Krypton is designed with a specific job in mind. Mm-hmm. So this is a very, very brave new world kind of situation that Krypton's got going on there. And apparently this has been going on for thousands of years, to the extent that they have had a natural birth in centuries. And that never gets talked about when people talk about this movie.
Yeah. and it's very top down, central planning, run amok, and it ruins the planet. So the reason why Krypton is imploding is because they have essentially mined the core of their planet for energy, and it seems like there was only a few people, few politicians, few born leaders, because that's how their society is these were chosen from birth to be leaders, and they decided to do this, take this project on, and it killed their planet, killed their society. But so Jor-El was able to get his son, his natural born son, onto a ship and sent to Earth. And I think everyone kind of knows the story. Crash lands in
Yeah,
Kansas, and
that
like,
that is that is a I'm so annoyed with Superman movies because who does not know the origin story of Superman these days?
yeah, but
I'm
so
like, stop it.
devil's advocate.
Like we
I mean,
know.
so with Spider-Man, we know what his origin story is, but we get origin story after origin story, but the different ones kind of work, and you kind of need that because they have different ticks and characteristics and stuff like that. So I'm okay with this because it also kind of pays off later in the movie because they actually talk about growing up in Kansas, which, hey, for me being a Kansan myself, it was kind of fun. See him in a Royals shirt, but I- the I think what was when this movie came out, I remember hearing a lot of talk about, oh, Superman, he's back to the American way. We've moved on past the truth, justice, and some other stuff, um, which was fine. I'm fine with that. The American way. We got our issues, but for the most part, it's not so bad. And I found it interesting because when he's crash landed in this field, he is hidden away by his adoptive parents, and but his throughout that whole time, his dad Kevin Costner, which I guess this cast is deep. So you got,
Oh, it's wow. There's a lot of talent
yeah,
in this movie.
like Russell
We've got
Crowe is
yeah.
there, Diane Lane is his mom, Kevin Costner, like I said, and then you got Michael Shannon as General Zod. It was just an all-star cast. Like, on paper, this
Yeah.
movie should knock it out of the park.
Yeah, Amy Adams
Yeah,
as Lois Lane.
Lois Lane. Yeah,
Like, yeah.
there's a lot of talent. So his dad, his Earth dad, adoptive father, is always stressing to him of you're different. You're going to change the world. You're going to change the way humans see the universe, and you have to be prepared for that. Which was kind of interesting to see. But as we move on in the movie and into the story, it doesn't ever really pay off that particularly well. And I think this is my main issue with the movie in general, is that they kind of toy with these really deep ideas like central planning and eugenics, but then on to the next thing. They toy with the
On to the punching.
onto the punching and the building destroying, onto the American way. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll keep going, and then we have so much collateral damage and murder millions of citizens. I know I'm talking to some libertarians, so I know when I say the American way, they're like, "Oh, that's the American way." Drone strikes. I get it, but like, that's not on paper what we would say would be the American way. Or growing up in Kansas is,
Yeah.
you're not okay with collateral damage. So you see him having a fight through his hometown of Smallville. How many people died in that? I don't know, but
Unclear.
they gloss past it. And this is for me, this is where Superman as a character is actually at its most interesting, is when he has to struggle with, he is all powerful. He is basically a god to humans based on his powers. And they're kind of and they kind of tease with they're going to go this route, but then it just stops. It's like, you just destroyed your friend's IHOP, and you just keep on going. Don't think about it. On to the next scene. So I think I found myself
Yeah.
getting more and more upset the more I think about this movie and rewatching it. That they just
Absolutely.
they don't pay off
They
on
had
any of these great ideas.
no, they don't. And they had Superman agonize over the absolute wrong things. Like Clark Kent slash Superman would not have hesitated for a moment to snap Zod's neck. Like that would not have been the thing that nearly broke him. It would have been all of the people who died
Yep.
trying to stop Zod, because that's what Superman is supposed to care about. He's supposed to care about protecting people. He's supposed to care about making life better for humans. And that can't happen if he's wrecking up their cities and accidentally dropping buildings on them. And I hesitate to even say accidentally because it's not an accident, it's just negligence.
Just fly somewhere
And
else.
yeah, and that is not at all what the character of Superman ought to have been doing. And
Right.
so they just had the character focusing on all the wrong things in this film, and that was really upsetting to me. I know that Sean feels incredibly passionately about this
Yes.
movie for that exact reason. He loves the character of Superman. He's a big fan of the comics and was just so angry at the way they portrayed Superman in this film. And so, shout out to Sean. Sorry you couldn't be here, bud, but there you
Yeah.
go. That's so.
Yeah. It really, the ending scene when he does end up snapping General Zod's neck. In the process, he also basically sends a family of four to their deaths, and then we just move on. Next scene. It's a weird choice, and it is a little frustrating because, like I've been saying, they they have these really interesting ideas placed at the beginning of the movie that could you could
Mhm.
really dive deep into a character that, I mean, yeah, he's all powerful, but like everyone, I think every human has the we talked about this last week. Every human has like, I know what's best. So imagine having the same impulses as a human, but being able to actually act on them.
Execute on those. Yeah.
That is interesting.
Like,
And that is exactly why Superman is so beloved and so interesting, because it actually has some humanness to it, even though he is not an alien, but also has these ridiculous powers.
yeah, Superman is interesting not because he's all powerful, but because he chooses to be good. And the notion of choice, that we can choose to be who we are, that we can choose to be better than we have been in the past, that was hinted at in this movie. That was ostensibly the whole reason that Jor-El sent Kal-El to Earth, so that he could choose his own path. Um, but then it's just dropped,
Yeah.
you know? There's no elaboration there.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and we're this it was still an okay movie. It was still a great, popcorn flick, but
Yeah. I
with
mean,
the
it wasn't a
ways
bad movie. It was just a bad Superman movie.
yeah, there hasn't been that many good ones.
Well, yeah, fair.
So this is probably one of the better ones in my opinion, but that's not saying much. So this I like I said earlier, I'm from Kansas, so Superman grew up in my neck of the woods, so to speak, in Smallville, and I think this scene in particular just kind of, for me anyways, because I lived this location for a lot of my life, but this scene kind of brings together that there's a lot of interesting ideas but just is not executed well. It's a scene towards the beginning of the movie where his school bus is driving back from school in the middle of western Kansas. If you don't know, western Kansas is flat, very flat, and hardly any water. And they drive off a bridge into a river that is deep enough, apparently, to submerge an entire school bus. And I'm sitting on my couch. I'm thinking, what where is this? Like, that's fine. Like, I'm fine showing saving your school classmates and like dealing with this. Like, well, maybe you should have let him die, like his dad said afterwards. Like, that might have been the right decision. But like, have some kind of realistic, tie it to the real world. And it was just, I know it's a nitpick, but it just, for me, it took me right out of the movie. And I know we're talking about a Superman movie and we're talking about aliens with superpowers, but this is something we know what Western Kansas is like. Well, let's get that right.
Yeah. There are some errors in this film that really do kind of jar you out of your suspension of disbelief here. Some this is clearly a work of fiction. When you do that, you're allowed to take some liberties, but you still need to at least present a world that could be true. And if it bears enough resemblance to the real world, you need to hold true to some of those real world things like Kansas geography. Or else you're gonna lose a lot of the
Yeah.
audience when they're like, wait a second, that is not how any of this works. So that is another annoying thing, and it's lazy storytelling, it's lazy writing,
Hmm.
and I hate to throw those accusations at Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan,
Yeah.
but it kind of feels like they phoned it in on that, you know?
Yeah. And you're
I
exactly
said
right.
what I
It's
said.
You said what you said. The gauntlet has been thrown down, and for for me, this whole entire plot, it felt a little crammed in. Maybe this is just me, but like you have this, you're rebooting this franchise with the idea of trying to copy Marvel and restart your own expanded universe. So your first movie is a story about how is the origin story of Superman, fine, but then the bad guy is literally going to kill every single human on Earth in 30 minutes unless you stop him. Where do you go from there? Like, what what's next?
Batman, apparently.
I think that was a weird choice. I mean, you could have definitely have split this whole movie up into different movies, and I think actually have some time to dive into these issues that we've been talking about and give it some airtime and some actual consequences instead of just, oh,
Yeah,
well, we got to, it's 45 minutes in, we have to have a fight scene. So that part is just because it, like I've been saying, there are some
yeah,
really interesting ideas there.
absolutely. And somehow this movie managed to be simultaneously too long and not long enough. So it's just like if you're gonna copy Marvel, copy Marvel. Like it's right there. You can follow the script. You can follow the blueprint
Yeah.
that they mapped out for the extended cinematic universe that they've created here. They could have done, three Superman movies the same way they did three Iron Man movies, and it the universe would have been the better for it, you
Yeah.
know? You don't have to fit everything for the setup to your big ensemble movie into a single film. Well, I guess technically two, if you count Batman versus Superman, which I really, really don't want to because it was a garbage movie. But goodness, like, come on, DC,
Yeah. So
focus.
I, you said something that sparked the question for me is it's like you have Marvel to copy. And that leads me to the question of on the outside, it seems like it's very easy to copy Marvel, but it also seems like it might actually not be because Marvel is this obviously is one of a kind. It hasn't been done previously, and I don't know if it's really. Who knows if it's going to fall on its face now that we're getting into phase 33? I don't even know where we're at anymore. But
I don't know.
it's obviously not that easy. So is it ineptitude by DC or is it just amazing talented people at Marvel that's where we're at?
I think the initial success of Marvel has to do with incredible talent there. And not just incredible talent, but also incredible skill. Because I really do want to make the distinction here between talent and skill. Talent is something that you can just do. Okay. Some people are better writers than others, just
Hmm.
naturally. They're better natural storytellers. But at a certain point, talent stops mattering and skill is what matters. And the only way you get skill is through hard work and diligence and iteration. So you had some really talented, highly skilled storytellers involved from the very beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man, and that is to Marvel's credit. That's well done, and that is not really something that you can fake.
Hmm.
So certainly, DC stumbled there, but did they really?
Yeah,
Like they had big names, people with both talent and skill
right.
involved in this movie. And it should have been amazing, but it turned into this talent bomb. And I think that's on DC.
Yeah, yeah. It feels a bit. It feels a bit like storytelling through a committee, almost.
Yeah.
And
They're like, oh no, we have to include this bit and
yeah,
that bit and these bits
well,
too. So
our
make it
test
work.
our test audience says they get bored about an hour 15 in, so maybe we should have a fight there, stuff like that. So I don't have much more to say about Man of Steel. We really wanted to hit on this because at the beginning of the show we talked about some really interesting topics that is civilization killing topics that been glossed over, but also the Zack Snyder director's cut of Justice League will be coming out soon. So we wanted to get kind of a progression into that 4 hour movie. I don't know what to
Event.
something
I, I
something.
don't I don't know. It's gonna be something.
It'll
It's gonna
it'll
be an
be on
experience, that's for
it'll
sure.
it'll be on HBO Max. We know that. That's pretty much it. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts on Man of Steel?
Man of Steel, I wanted to like this movie so much. I'm a fan of Superman. I'm a huge fan of Henry Cavill. That is not a secret to anybody who knows me. But like we were halfway through this movie and my husband and I look at each other and he tells me, "Explain to me why we're not just watching The Witcher instead."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, because I have to watch this one." That's why. But like this movie should have been good, and it wasn't. And I don't think it was through any fault of the actors or even of the director. Like they did the best they could with what DC handed them, but DC was too tied up in the numbers
Yeah.
to consider the art. And when you're making movies for a, a big audience like a Superman reboot, you have to think about both. It can't just be one or the other. So they missed, and they missed badly. And
Yeah.
then they leaned into
Double
the
down.
miss and kept missing. It was
You know,
so
it's the old basketball adage: shooters shoot. You shoot out of slumps. Maybe Zack Snyder will save it with the director's cut, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
fingers crossed.
No,
I don't know. It's well, we'll find out.
we will. So we'll end with that conversation. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and please tell your friends to check out our show. And if you haven't left a review on Apple or Google or Spotify, please do so. It really helps us out. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel for the podcast. And also, if you're not at this point, subscribe to the Fee Online YouTube channel. Please do so as well. And in the Patreon and the supporters bonus, I got to get this right. The supporters bonus, Jen and I will be talking about The Legend of Korra. We just released an Out of Frame short a couple weeks ago at this point, and Jen has a lot to say about this. So if you want to see a fiery Jen, join us for this special supporters section of the show. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.